Pee-wee as himself. The Paul Reubens documentary. For people that don't know, Paul Reubens, or I mean, how do you not know who Pee-wee Herman is at the very least, even if you're a young buck? I mean, he's a comedian that owned the 80s. I mean, he also is very symbolic of the 80s. It was such a time where, you know, like a kind of wacky, innocent, childlike character like that just captured the hearts and minds. And as a kid growing up, Pee-wee's Big Adventure was very important to me. My sensibilities, my sense of humor. It's one of those movies, like as a kid, I loved it so much. And then as I got older, you know, you watch it more, and it's not that there's like adult things that go over your head. Maybe there's a few things like that, but just some of the absurdities just become even funnier. In my mind, it's essentially like a perfect movie. But the documentary is really great because, I mean, whether you know him as Pee-wee or you just know about a lot of the controversies later in his life, the documentary gets into a lot of that. I mean, if you're not aware, he was arrested for being in a porno theater, allegedly masturbating,
which is fine. But also, sorry to cut you off, Jim, but I don't know how. Maybe this is just me. I don't know how much it is. I mainly know Pee-wee through you talking about him.
Really? Okay.
Yeah, and Paul Reubens in general, I think. So, would you be able to describe what the show is for all us uncultured European swine?
Well, I guess there's layers to this though, because Pee-wee the character, I mean, he's an adult, but he acts like a child. And, you know, he's got his patented gray suit and red bow tie, happy-go-lucky, you know, adult child. Now, the character itself started as like a Groundlings character, you know, classic artist performer. Like it became this character he was doing on stage at the Groundlings, which is
like an improv place, yes?
Correct. Yes, yeah. It's like like kind of in the realm of like Second City or any of those. And Groundlings are like, it's a big pool for like a lot of SNL. A lot of like SNL stars came from the Groundlings.
Okay, so it's kind of like the 80s version of saying some bullshit on TikTok.
Essentially, yes. And so that turned into, I think, like an off-Broadway show, and maybe even potentially like a Broadway show. Like he built this. Like the show itself was more, it was a kid show, but it had a lot more innuendo and jokes around that. Like it was more adult driven, and that got enough buzz where he made a movie. Like he ended up, Phil Hartman's one of the co-writers on Pee-wee's Big Adventure, so he worked close with Phil Hartman at the time. And Pee-wee's Big Adventure came first, and after they made Pee-wee's Big Adventure, it did turn into Pee-wee's Playhouse, which was a kid, like that was legitimately a kid's show. That's what had like, you know, it was like a Saturday morning type thing. And he had this crazy, you know, house that had like a talking chair, all kinds of puppets, animation. And it's a similar thing where you could watch it as a kid, or you could be like a grown up stoner and you're like, oh, this is so funny. This is great.
Sounds great.
Yeah, it's so good. It's classic.
It also sounds like I've seen things inspired by this, right?
Yeah, and he was clearly inspired by a lot of like kitschy, campy things from, say, like the 50s and 60s, whether it be like Howdy Doody or things like that, but like everything to like an extreme degree, you know what I mean? Or even to like a lesser extent, something like Mr. Rogers or whatever. But everything his was like extreme and hyper and kind of for a little bit more of an outcast feel to it. He had a lot of different characters, again, that were puppets, or some of them were actors, like Lawrence Fishburne. It was one of his early roles. He was Cowboy Curtis. And then, you know, so he really did own the 80s, like especially like in the States, obviously. Like if you look at a lot of old pop culture things, like different award shows and stuff from the time, usually Pee-wee's somewhere involved. He's going to have a segment or do something. Mm-hmm. And then later towards, you know, then we get to the nihilist 90s, as I like to call them, where grunge took over and like fucking shit sucks because the 80s were just too, you know, too cool for school, as Stranger Things has taught us. Then, you know, he was in the original Buffy movie. He was in Buffy the Vampire Slayer, but he was completely unrecognizable. Although I think this was after his controversy, because again, he gets arrested in a porno theater, and that's obviously, I mean, especially at the time,
Such a 90s kids thing
yeah.
to do.
And it's such a salacious headline, you know, child show host arrested in porno theater. He to his death had said that he wasn't masturbating, but I mean, it doesn't really matter. I mean, what everyone in a porno theater is probably masturbating.
Isn't
I
that
imagine.
the point?
Yeah. I mean, luckily we came up in the age of the internet. We didn't have to go to a porno theater. Just masturbate in our homes.
When we do it, it's for that cultivated cinematic experience of jerking off together.
Yeah.
We get the popcorn, you know, it's the magic of cinema.
So there was a whole thing with that. And then there was a thing where he was later on, like in the early 2000s, because he kind of had a mini comeback. That was a huge controversy. But one of the best things he did was shortly after, it was a few months after, they had the MTV, it was either the Movie Awards or the Video Music Awards, which at the time was like for young kids, it was a cultural thing. Like it was always a big deal. And he opened the show, like they brought him out, and it's such a good line where he comes out in full Pee-wee regalia, but everyone's cheering and loving him because, I mean, he's been like, he was just the butt of every late night joke and headline, like the old version of memes were late night host jokes.
I see. Thank you for explaining to me.
He like waits for the crowd to chill out, and then he just says, "Heard any good jokes lately?" and fucking destroys. The whole crowd goes wild. And then he was in this movie Blow. Like he had he had this little mini resurgence, but then something happened where he was targeted later in life. He was a big kitschy camp guy. Like he collected all kinds of crazy, you know, old toys, old magazines, stuff like that. And he did like, they confiscated his art. He had a lot of like old queer magazines, and they tried to pin him on like child pornography or something like that. And that ended up getting like thrown out. But like, again, it was just headlines. Like all this stuff's covered in the documentary. So I don't mean like spoil things, but like, it's nice that they get into these things. They don't try to gloss over it. But what it comes down to, it becomes very sad because it was a guy. There's a few things that the documentary covers is that the allure of Pee-wee, and even in Pee-wee's Big Adventure, his first big movie, which was Tim Burton's first feature film, by the way, it was also Danny Elfman's first score. So it's a lot of things came out of Pee-wee's Big Adventure, but it's the credits say Pee-wee as himself. It doesn't say Paul Reubens Pee-wee.
Yeah.
So in the documentary, he talks a little about that. I mean, as any artist or performer, whatever, that's got to be like, it's a weird double-edged sword. It's like amazing because I'm on top of the world. Like everyone recognizes me, but they don't know my name technically. They don't know who I am. He was also a gay man, and that he lived in the early 80s as an out gay man, but then realized like to be a celebrity, he had to push that part away.
Yeah.
And then when he had all the later controversies, he didn't quite trust that he had the fan base that he thought he had. And like, I don't know, I'm getting like emotional talking about it because it was like really sad to me that he didn't understand that we loved him no matter what. I'm really...
It's okay. Yeah.
Now, one of the reasons why I'm getting emotional, though, too, because I visited his grave yesterday.
Shit.
Well, also, because what I wanted to get into after this documentary is because I went to, it was the 40th anniversary of Pee-wee's Big Adventure on Saturday. Saturday was the actual 40th anniversary. And I went to a screening at Warner Brothers where it was shot.
Wow.
They did a Warner Brothers tour, which was awesome. And like you saw some, like, because the big thing with the end of the movie is he does go on a chase through the studio a lot. Like he's being chased by Warner Brothers guards and police, but he's running through movie set. I mean, I don't think it's the first thing to do that, but like when you see movies do that now, they're clearly inspired by Pee-wee. So like seeing all the sets, and then they bring you into what they have a really nice theater on the lot, and like being feet away from where some of the scenes happen, and like everyone in there, like everyone's a big fan. Like it was such a awesome feeling. And then the next day before I drove home, I was like, I gotta go to his gravesite. Jesus, I'm getting emotional.
And it's all covered in memorabilia and things from fans, right? That's what I'm looking at. If you're on the audio, Jim's sharing some pictures from his trip.
And I left, if you look to the right by Cherry, that's my lanyard. I left it at his gravesite. I've never done this on a podcast before.
This is the best episode of Shows What You Know we've ever had. I guarantee it.
But
I gotta watch this show. This is the best recommendation you've ever given, Jim. I've heard you talk about Pee-wee heaps of times. I've seen little clips here and there. I know his bike is stolen. He wants his bike back. That's it for me. So I need to watch this documentary. I need to watch this movie. I need to watch this show. You're definitely selling it to me.
Yeah, because it was one of those too. What's great about the documentary is that he's in it, obviously. There's a filmmaker making it, and he's interviewing him. And there are moments where Pee-wee Paul Reubens can't turn it off. Like, he's still bidding.
Yeah.
But you know he's bidding because, number one, he's probably kind of uncomfortable being so vulnerable. And number two, like, he wants to control it. And I feel like a lot of that comes from, like, he essentially, like, again, it's like a monkey's paw. Like, he really got everything he ever wanted. Well, you can't really deny that. Like, again, he was on top of the world. He was performing. But the sense you get from the documentary is that it really hurt him the way things kind of like shook out later in his career. And again, he still had more of a comeback. Like, he was able to make a Netflix follow-up movie, which was really funny. I got to watch that again. He did go on tour for the 35th anniversary, and I'm so grateful I got to go to a screening of that. I went to a screening of that like 3 weeks before everything shut down for COVID, because this was in 2020. Wow.
Yeah.
And like his tour, that tour got to be like ended up having to obviously be shut down, and then he passed in 2023. So yeah, I mean, it just it means a lot to me.